Welcome to the Financial Integrity Hub's podcast. The Financial Integrity Hub pioneers research and explores how law and governance strategies can be designed, implemented and enforced to support anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Identity, a RegTech providing financial institutions assurance that they are meeting AUSTRAC reporting obligations. The platform allows regulated entities to gain visibility over transactions, improve auditability, automate manual processes, and reduce the risk of non-compliance. Your host is Isabel Nicholas. Isabel is a researcher at the Financial Integrity Hub. She teaches financial crime at Macquarie Law School and interviews global and domestic experts on trends and market insights for the podcast.
Welcome back to the Financial Integrity Hub's podcast. Today I'm joined by Professor Elizabeth Sheedy, who teaches risk measurement and management at Macquarie University. Elizabeth is also an advisory board member at the Financial Integrity Hub. We dive deep into the topic of director responsibility for AML. We also consider the indirect impact of non-compliance beyond fines and regulatory action. Elizabeth shares some powerful insights about what reputational risk actually means for non-compliant businesses. We discuss the link between AML non-compliance with broader risk management failure. Thanks to our listeners for tuning in. You can find our previous episodes by searching the Financial Integrity Hub at Macquarie Law School on LinkedIn or on Macquarie University's website. Elizabeth Sheedy is part of the Financial Integrity Hub's leadership team. She is a professor at Macquarie University teaching risk measurement and management within the Master of Applied Finance program. She's done a lot of research on risk governance issues, including accountability, remuneration systems, risk culture, and ethical culture. Elizabeth was a keynote speaker at the Financial Integrity Hub's end of year event in 2023. It's great to have you back. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for asking me, Isabel.
Let's get right into it, Elizabeth. In a recent paper that you wrote with Dr. Doron Goldbasht and support from Arctic Intelligence and Anthony Quinn, you considered that amending the AML regulatory framework to increase directors' responsibilities would enhance compliance and mitigate risks associated with non-compliance. You suggested moving away from a mere duty of care to a more robust duty of oversight. Could you tell me a little bit more about this, and why is the duty of care not sufficient for keeping senior management accountable?
Yeah, so look, my response to that's probably going to be a little bit convoluted. First of all, I should make very clear I'm not a lawyer. I've never formally studied law at all. And I guess the big issue for me is that it's for risk governance to work well. It doesn't matter what the risk is, AML or any kind of risk. What you need is good accountability. And that's a really crucial issue to make it work. And it does seem to me that very often from the cases that I've studied, that directors don't do a very good job of imposing accountability on the executive. And there's a lot of really poor directors around, speaking frankly. A lot of lazy, incompetent directors is the problem. So, what do you do about that? I'm not really sure, to be honest, whether changing the law is required. Like this distinction between duty of care versus duty of oversight. Hang on, isn't it the job of a director to provide oversight? Okay, so my point is we've got to get the directors to do their job. It's that simple. I'm not sure, as a non-lawyer, it's not clear to me whether the existing law is fit for purpose or not. Is it more a question that ASIC is so hopeless? Okay, so that's the other possibility, that we've got a corporate regulator that just doesn't seem to be able to win any cases. Yeah, so I guess you as a bunch of lawyers are going to have to help me out here in solving that one. But, the key point is there has to be real consequences for senior executives and for directors that really don't do their job. It seems to be this argument, the executive never told us that there was a problem. That's not good enough. It's got to be up to the directors to look for problems. Okay, that to me is what good oversight would be. You can't just sit back and wait for problems to be brought to you. But it seems like ASIC's not willing to chase after directors unless there's clear evidence that they were informed. I'm sorry, but usually when people stuff up, they don't go admitting it. So that's my perspective. It possibly wasn't the answer you're expecting, Isabel.
So, Elizabeth, what are the risks then if we do heighten a responsibility or accountability framework for directors? Do you think there are any risks involved with that, or is that just the best course to ensure that there really is real accountability here?
Risks. Look, I had the same conversation. I was the guest of the University College Dublin Law School a few months ago. They invited me to a presentation about our new BEAR regime, the Banking Executive Accountability Regime. I had a question from someone saying, oh, but what about the protections for the directors? Hang on. The whole point is we don't want to protect directors. We want them to feel scrutiny. Yeah, so is there a fear that we'll never be able to attract good directors? We'll never be able to attract senior executives? I call bullshit on that. You can't beat them off with a stick. There's so many people wanting to be directors. So when I hear people in industry screaming, this guy's going to fall in, no one will want to be a director. Honestly, I just want to fall about laughing. That seems like the most ridiculous argument I've ever heard.
That is fair enough. And I know that there are a lot of emotional boardrooms with the changes on bar legislation. So I can see where you're coming from. So thank you for that. And congratulations on the soon-to-be publication for your article with Monash University Press. I found it quite insightful myself. I'm sure others will gain value considering your insights as well.
Yeah, no worries.
I heard you speak at the Financial Integrity Hub's end-of-year event on the hidden consequences of non-compliance with AML. It was a really powerful message about the impact of non-compliance beyond the already significant fines that are issued by AUSTRAC and by the courts. Can you give an overview of the hidden consequences for non-compliance?
Yeah. So look, this came up because of a conversation that Doron and I had about the civil penalties on Westpac. And at the time, perhaps still is the biggest civil penalty that AUSTRAC had given, 1.3 billion, I'm pretty sure. So he was pretty excited about that. And my reaction was, yeah, but that's just the tip of the iceberg, right, in terms of the real financial consequences. I could see that he wasn't really following what I meant. So with the help of my PhD student, we did some quick analysis, and that was what I presented the other day. So the way you can do this quite easily is you can look at the share prices over time, and you can adjust them to see to what extent changes in the share price are due to market movements in general, or is it unique to that company? And so that gives us, then we're able to split out what's going on. Is it the market effect, or is it things that are unique to that company? And so what we were able to discover is that in the year following the announcement about the AML problems at Westpac, the market value of equity at Westpac fell by about 27%. That's after adjusting for general market movements. So that's a loss in shareholder value of 16 billion, okay? And of course, so that means that, the civil penalty is actually only a small proportion of that. So it kind of helps us to put it in context. And I think it highlights that the indirect costs can actually be quite massive. These so-called reputational costs, it involves loss of market share and a whole bunch of additional costs of doing business, like costs of debt, costs of audit, higher insurance premiums, higher remuneration costs. It just becomes harder to attract talent, and it goes on and on. In the case of Westpac, there was also an additional capital penalty of 500 million from APRA. So there was a bunch of risk management failures at Westpac at about the same time. It's hard to tease out exactly what proportion of that was the AML, because, what typically happens when there's massive AML failure is it's actually a symptom of a broader risk governance problem. So you would expect to see other risk management issues as well. It's a broader malaise, is how I describe it. Now, if we look at the case of Star Entertainment, now that's quite an interesting one because, to my knowledge, Austrac still hasn't imposed a penalty. So we don't have any civil penalty from Austrac as yet, although they are under investigation. That whole story started because of media inquiries. And at the time that those, and then that prompted the Bell inquiry. So Star Entertainment is really in a great deal of trouble because they've had their license suspended. So their market value of equity has fallen by about 75%. It's quite stunning, and that's before any civil penalty from Austrac. It could, and that I would imagine that's a consideration for Austrac because any additional penalty could potentially, blow them out of the water. So it's a business that is really looking on very shaky ground. And I guess that again highlights, your reputation is destroyed and your license to operate is suspended. The business consequences can be pretty massive.
Yeah, there was some really wild figures and fascinating insights. And I guess it's true, the media headlines tend to focus on the regulatory penalties that are issued by the courts and by Austrac, and we seldom hear about the hidden consequences of non-compliance. So thank you for that, and thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Oh, that was my pleasure. Good fun.
The Financial Integrity Hub's research equips Australia and the international community with the knowledge, tools and insights to understand, identify and disrupt illicit finance threats. If you're interested in seeing more from the Financial Integrity Hub, don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn to see our posts and events. We post a few times each week on breaking news and the latest research. We would like to thank Dr. Doran Goldbarsch for his academic advice and Isabel Nicholas for hosting.